Well, it's that time of the month yet again. It's that time where I go through all the CDs I acquired throughout the month and I give my first impressions. Now you would think, with February being the shortest month, I wouldn't be able to get as many, and if I did, I probably didn't even have enough time to listen to them all. Well, no exactly. Not only was I able to pick up over 60 albums here, I was even able to listen to them all in record time. I attribute that to the fact that I got a CD player recently, and because of that excitement, I was able to just blaze through all these CDs because I was kind of excited to use it. And I guess that definitely did help a lot. So yeah, I was able to listen to them all, and I'll be able to give my first impressions on pretty much the majority of all this, with a couple exceptions, which I'll get into in a bit. But I'm not going to go ahead beat around the bush. I'm just going to jump right into it. So hopefully you always look forward to these CD hauls every month. And if you do, please give this video a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new. And like I said a second ago, let's jump right into it. Bryer's Music Showcase is brought to you by the people over at Patreon. Pledge today and get access to exclusive perks. Link in the description. So for this CD haul, I'm trying something a little bit different. I tried really hard to divide all the CDs into sections by genre. So this first category we're going to go through isn't really a genre, but they do have a theme to it. It's, of course, albums that were part of the album exchange I'm a part of over on Jason Neo Millennial's channel. And I'm just going to go through these rather quickly, but I still want to showcase these. So first up, we have Jason's pick. This is a soundtrack album to this movie, A Mighty Wind. This was from 2003, I believe. And then after that, we have Nick's pick, kind of a big surprise, and some of you viewers might be surprised as well, but we have Lou Bega with A Little Bit of Mumbo. And then the last one's from Scott. It's from a band called Keen, and this album is called Under the Iron Sea. So, again, these are kind of in the same boat. Now, funny enough, normally when I do these, when I showcase the albums from the album exchange, I don't really talk about them too much because I want to save them when we do the actual video. But this is one of the rare occasions where we actually have, by the time I'm recording this, we have already done that. And you would think because now that we did the video, I can now freely talk about it. No, I actually will not. You're going to have to watch that video to find out what my big thoughts are on all three of these albums. I'll leave a link to that video in the description, so make sure you check it out after you're done with this video, by the way. But again, just want to showcase all these things. You know, Keen, I hadn't heard before prior, and A Mighty Wind, never saw the movie, and then Lou Bega, I mean, it has the big hit, Mambo No. 5, so yeah, that's all I'm going to say on those three, but just want to quickly showcase those first. And moving on to the next category, it's definitely the smallest out of everything. This is like the metal category. And the first one I'm going to show is from a very well-known guitar player, and he started in a band called Alcatraz, but then he kind of broke away and decided to go solo, and I believe this is his first kind of solo project. We have Yngwie Malmsteen, and this is the album, Yngwie Malmsteen's Rising Force. Okay, so, I mean, that album cover is very metal, I will say, and of course you have the back cover, you have Yngwie right there. And like I said, he's known for his very neoclassical style of guitar playing. He's a shredder through and through, like he's like playing like 1,000 notes a second. And yeah, I mean, it's a good showcase of his talent. My only gripe with this album, I mean, it's mostly instrumental, which, you know, it's fine if you like that sort of thing, but to me, I kind of wanted more vocals. And out of the 8 songs, there's only 2 songs with vocals, and it's by a guy named Jeff Scott Soto, who I think he sounds pretty good. But again, if you love that heavy instrumental sort of style, then hey, go ahead, check this out, because if you're a guitar fan, you definitely want to check them out. But again, solid album, but don't know how often I'll go back to, but it does make me intrigued to check out more of Yngwie's solo stuff, so it's a good, I think it's a decent start. And then after that, we have the man, the myth, the legend. We have Ozzy Osbourne with The Ultimate Sin from 1986. Now, this is an Ozzy album I've been meaning to get for a long time, but I don't know why took me so long. Mainly because most of the time when I try to find a copy online, it's either hard to come by, surprisingly. Usually it's out of stock, and sometimes it's just a bit pricey. But finally glad to actually own this one. I mean, it has two pretty notable songs on here. You have The Ultimate Sin, and then you have Shot in the Dark, which is probably the biggest song on here. But the rest of the album is pretty strong. I mean, you still have Ozzy sounding great. You know, this is the last album with Jake E. Lee on guitar before he would be kind of sacked. Reasons why, we may never know. But still, I think it's a really fun Ozzy album. I know I only have one more 80s Ozzy album to get. We'll see if I get that at some point. But finally glad to get The Ultimate Sin in the collection. Again, very strong album. And now we're going to be switching up. This is what I would classify as the country section. And it's also pretty small, but there's definitely some surprises in here. So the first one I'll show is a 2-in-1 CD, and the artist is Graham Parsons. And this CD pack has his first two solo albums, with his first one called just GP. Then you have the follow-up with Grievous Angel. Hopefully I said that right. But there you go. So Graham Parsons, for those who don't know, he got his start, and he's pretty well known in the country field. Of course, I believe, again, I'm not an expert, but I believe based on what I've looked up, he's kind of one of those artists where, you know, he wasn't quite as appreciated in his lifetime, and also the fact he died very young. And over time, people now see him as a very influential figure in not just the country genre, but also the country rock genre, because he was in the Byrds at one point for the album Sweetheart of the Rodeo, and then he was part of the Flying Burrito Brothers. I think he was a founding member. And then here he's going solo on here, and these are usually pretty highly regarded, and I really dug these two. Talking about the debut, again, I like the debut quite a bit. Again, it's very country sounding, but that's kind of what I expected. And I do like his vocals. His vocals sound very nice. It kind of fits the mood he's going for. But I will say, I think the next album, Grievous Angels, is probably the better of the two, personally. And of course, it's also a posthumous album because, again, he died not too long after the debut, but he already had songs ready for the next one, so they decided to release it anyway. And it's very good. Again, you have the Return of the Grievous Angel, Heart of Fire, 1000 Wedding I also really enjoy, Love Hurts. Again, it's a very nice album. I mean, both of them are very nice albums. So if you're a country rock fan, I definitely do think they're definitely worth checking out, because they're pretty up there for a lot of people. Again, based on what I've seen. But it's definitely nice to check out some Graham Parsons. And then the final two I'm going to show in this category are from the same artist, and it's a very, very well-known country artist, and that, of course, is Dolly Parton. And I found one of her early albums. I think this is her second studio album, with Just Because I'm a Woman, and this was in 67, 68 when it came out originally. And then I found this one. This is from 73. This is called My Tennessee Mountain Home. And starting with this one, I mean, it's very typical country sounding, which, you know, it's kind of not 100% my thing, but I've always liked Dolly's voice. There's like a purity, a little bit of an innocent sound to it. Kind of very sweet, and I've always dug it. But again, musically, it's not quite my thing 100%, but still very deep, very solid. And I think of the two, I think this one is definitely better in my opinion. It's kind of a concept album because, again, you know, it's My Tennessee Mountain Home, basically singing about, you know, home, where she came from. And I think, I mean, the first track, The Letter, pretty much kind of sums up. It's basically Dolly reciting this letter she sent to her family, and that pretty much pretty much sums up the entire album. But I think the songwriting here is very nice. I think it's a lot stronger. Some great melodies on here. And again, you definitely hear the heartfelt nature of Dolly's vocals on this. So I think this is a stronger album. And so I'm definitely more intrigued to check out more of her studio album. I know it's a big one, a big discography, but little by little, we'll see how I feel. But because people I don't really feel people talk about her albums too much. I mean, she's had some big singles, but in terms of albums, I don't really hear about them a lot. So if you're a Dolly Parton fan, let me know some other albums I should check out from her. Okay, so this next segment is also not too big, but it's definitely bigger than the other two. And it was kind of hard to decide what albums would be in here, because there's some that is more hip hop, but then there's some that's a bit more R&B, and then there's some where it basically combines the two. And I was like, screw it, just put them all in one section. So again, not too many here, but the first one I'm going to show is from a very well-known hip-hop artist, and that is Tupac, and this is his album, All Eyes on Me. So that's right, I am continuing my my gradual exploration of hip-hop and rap. And of course, Tupac is one of the big ones in the 90s, and I think this is one of the last albums he did before he died. And it has some pretty big songs on here, and probably the song I knew the most was California Love, another California song, and yeah, I did like that song. So yeah, it's a long album though. That's probably my only critique of this album. It's 2 discs and it's over 2 hours worth of music, so it's definitely a lot to get through in one sitting. So that's my only big negative of the album, is that it is pretty long. But despite that, there definitely were some strong songs on here, and I did groove along to a lot of this stuff. But again, I don't know how often I'll listen to the entire thing on its own, but I'll probably end up just picking songs. But still, it's a pretty influential album in its discography, so I thought it was worth owning. And then the next one I have next is from another very well-known artist, and that is Beyonce. And I think this is her first solo album. This is Dangerously in Love. And again, not the first Beyonce album I've picked up, but this is like the second one I've got here. And yeah, I just wanted to check out more Beyonce. And there were some nice songs, but I feel like I like the songs where she's just, singing. There's songs where it definitely leans more on the hip hop, and she brought some guests. Of course, it's Beyonce, so of course Jay-Z has to be on a couple songs. So I'm not too crazy on those tracks, but again, the songs where they lean more on the R&B, I think they're a lot stronger to my ears. And one of my favorite songs on here is a duet with Luther Vandross, The Closer I Get to You. I think that's a very nice kind of duet. But again, it's kind of a mixed bag at the end of the day. Again, I like the more R&B, but the hip hop kind of disrupts the flow of the album. No pun intended. But yeah, again, I liked it. And now we get this album. This is one of the more recent albums to be released, and this one is from an artist named Olivia Dean. Now, as of this recording, she is pretty big at the moment because she recently won the Grammy for Best New Artist. And I heard the song The Man I Need, and the second I heard that track, I had to get this one because I really enjoyed that song. Great kind of more retro pop, but still has a very modern flair to it, which I like a lot. And her vocals are very good too. And the whole album is very nice. There's songs that probably I didn't think were as memorable, but man, when the songs hit, they really do stand out pretty good. Again, her vocals are great. She's British, but she really does a great job singing the R&B style. But yeah, Man I Need is great. And let me just look at because again, I always have notes on the side so I can see which songs were the highlights. Okay, Nice to Meet You, Lady Lady, Close Up, and then another song I really enjoyed was So Easy, parentheses, to Fall in Love. Something in Between, A Couple of Minutes. So again, very strong album. Definitely want to check out more from her. So yeah, I liked it quite a bit. Again, this next one is kind of hard to I was really wrapping my head if I wanted to put this in pop, but it's kind of funky and has some R&B, little teensy bits of R&B, but not a ton. So it just barely got into this section. But I have Earth, Wind & Fire, and this is an album called Spirits. So yeah, the first Earth, Wind & Fire album I have in the collection, because I've had a greatest hits for a long time now, so might as well check out their studio stuff. And I liked it. I liked what I've heard from it. I'm trying to remember, because I didn't look at that greatest hits, so I don't know what songs were on there. But again, referring to my notes on some of the highlights on here, let me just see, and it's Getaway, On Your Face, Imagination, the title track, Saturday Night, and funny enough, there's a song called Earth, Wind & Fire. And then you have Burnin' Bush. Yeah. So again, I like Earth, Wind & Fire. They have always had a nice sound to them. Great vocals, good vocal harmony, nice arrangement musically. There's some good stuff. Definitely maybe we'll check out more from them too. And the last in this category is in the R&B soul category, and this is Marvin Gaye with his album Midnight Love. This is the last album he would release in his lifetime before he was killed. And of course, this had the song Sexual Healing, which of course I heard it for the first time because of the... When I get that feeling, I want sexual healing. Now I will say, this is probably the weakest Marvin Gaye album I've heard thus far. Because besides Sexual Healing, which is great, I don't find that a lot of songs live up to that. I mean, he still sings great, of course. I mean, I'm not knocking him off vocally, because even to the end, he sounded very smooth. But the other songs I did enjoy were Rockin' After Midnight, Turn On Some Music, Joy, and the last song, My Love Is Waiting. Again, some of the rest kind of fell into more generic territory, which is kind of, I don't know if that's kind of harsh to say, but you know, it's still a decent album with some nice songs in here. So very nice still. And now we've come to one of the bigger sections of this video, and this is essentially the progressive rock segment. And I've also included a little bit of jazz rock too, because they're kind of companion genres, if you will. But the majority of this is purely progressive rock. But the first one I'm going to show is more on the jazz rock vein, and that is Blood, Sweat, and Tears with their self-titled album. So Blood, Sweat, and Tears is one I've been meaning to check out, and yeah, it's some great, kind of more jazzy, but they also had some more, I guess, pop hits, if you will, putting air quotes on pop, because they're definitely not your traditional pop sound. But again, great musicianship. It's kind of like almost predates Chicago in a sense of combining rock music and horns. The vocals were pretty solid all the way through, and pretty much 10 tracks with a couple bonus songs, but it was all pretty good. So I enjoyed Blood, Sweat, and Tears. I know their debut album is also pretty good too, so again, definitely want to explore more of this band here. But that's the first one. And the next one I have here, again, I was debating whether to put this in this category or the more general rock pop segment. But I ultimately decided to kind of go more on the progressive rock, because this figure is very much entwined with it. So I have Peter Gabriel with his second album, also known as Scratch, because he's literally scratching the album artwork. And this is one I have been trying to seek out for a long time, because I already have the debut, and I have his third, and I have the fourth self-titled, but the second self-titled has always eluded me. I have no idea why, but I was very fortunate to finally complete the 4 self-titled, I don't know, series, if you will. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Again, another strong album from Gabriel on this, because again, I think every song on here is pretty good. I don't think there was any like weak moments, and even the songs I didn't find as memorable, I still really dug it. Because again, Peter at this point, you know, there's still some experimentation on here, but there's nothing too weird that kind of turns you off. It all comes together extremely well. And you have Robert Fripp on here too, which is also a nice little touch. But very glad to finally get this on CD. And now we've come to this particular band, and I picked up 3 albums from them, mainly because I've been trying to kind of get back into them, because it's been a long time since I've actually listened to their music. And it's a very fairly well respected progressive rock band. It's not like one of the S tier bands to most, but they're usually kind of just below it. So the band is Gentle Giant, and I have this album from 1973 called In a Glass House. And then after that, we have the next album from 1974. We have The Power and the Glory. And then following that album, I have 1975's Freehand. So again, Gentle Giant, they're definitely one of the more... They're an interesting band, to say the least. They're a bit harder to get into because their music is not as accessible as like a Genesis or a Yes. But once you get it, you really have a good time with them, because they have a very quirky nature to them. These very weird time signature changes, and the vocals can be, again, on the quirky side. But I really dig it. And all 3 of these were definitely cool to get into. They haven't released too many, but I definitely do want to complete the discography, because again, it's a very fascinating listen going through them, because they're very unique. So it's kind of hard to review each one, because again, they both have similarities, but they're also very different from each other. But of the 3, I think In a Glass House is my favorite, and it could potentially be one of my favorite albums from the band I've heard, because I can't really tell you why, but it's just very well put together, and there's just a fascination I have with this album for some reason. And the album cover is kind of interesting because it's kind of black and white. But yeah, this might be my favorite of these 3, but of course these 2 are also worth exploring. This one has a very good concept dealing with power and corruption. And then you have Freehand, which is probably them almost trying to go for a slightly more commercial sound, which I'm putting commercial in the biggest air quotes possible, because it's a bit more accessible, but it still has that very eccentric sort of side to them that they're always known for. So there's that. But again, so now I pretty much have most of the 70s album. I think I'm still missing a couple more. I know Interview is one, and then there's one called The Missing Piece, and I think there's 2 more. So I think I only have 4 more Gentle Giant albums to get. So not much left, so we'll see if I pick up the rest. And then I picked up this live album from Rush, and this is a pretty notable one. This is All the World's a Stage. Just a good snapshot at the band during their early period. Of course, this is when 2112 was released, and the songs included is Bastille Day, Anthem, Fly By Night / In the Mood, Something for Nothing, Lakeside Park, and kind of a slightly shortened version of 2112, because they did leave out a couple sections. Bytor and the Snow Dog, In the End, and then this CD closes off with Working Man / Finding My Way. So again, if you're a Rush fan, yeah, definitely gotta get this one. And here is a supergroup in a sense. We have a band called UK, and I'm already forgetting most of the members, but I know there's some pretty big guys in this band. This is their debut album, by the way, and let's see if I can look on here. So you have John Wetton, who of course plays bass and the lead vocalist, who of course is known for bands like King Crimson, and then he was in Uriah Heep briefly, and then he would later form Asia, so pretty big name. Eddie Jobson, who I believe was in Roxy Music, more on them later. Then you have Alan Holdsworth, pretty well-known guitarist, and then Bill Bruford, of course from Yes and King Crimson as well. And this is a Japanese version of the album, by the way, because the booklet is in Japanese. But this is a Prog album I definitely wanted, because most Prog fans can say this is definitely one of the must-owns, and I can definitely see why. This is one I definitely want to give more listens to, because I feel like this album is going to grow on me the more I hear it. But you have great musicianship, great vocals, and yeah, and I like the album cover too. This is pretty, I don't know, it's simple, but I like it. But there we go, UK, self-titled. Again, must listen if you're getting into progressive rock. And then I have Venograph Generator with H to He, Who Am the Only One. That is a to say. So besides that, so now I own all the 70s albums from Venograph Generator, and this is one I've been meaning to get, like I said, just so I can get all the 70s albums. And just like a lot of the 70s albums, I think this is another pretty good one, and I definitely want to re-listen to all the albums from this band, because I feel like they're a band that they keep growing on me the more I give them more chances. Because when I first was getting their CDs, I was like, yeah, it's good, but I don't know if I will ever be a big fan. Because again, it's a similar story to Gentle Giant, even though they sound nothing alike. There's a bit of a they're not quite as accessible, and also Peter Hamill's vocals can be a turnoff for some. But they've definitely been growing on me in recent time. So yeah, this is another one nice to own in the collection. And then we have good old Frank Zappa. This album is called One Size Fits All from 1975. Now when you talk to Frank Zappa fans, most of them will say this is one of his best albums, because this is during his kind of jazz fusion, progressive rock era. And after giving this a listen, I can wholeheartedly see why. This is, yeah, I think this is probably the best Frank album I've heard so far. Again, I like the musicianship on here, great guitar work. Even some of the vocals were actually not too weird based on what I've heard previously. But it all comes together extremely. There's some good memorable parts on it. And again, nothing like their debut album, which I said I'm not that big into. But this is the Frank Zappa I would recommend people give a chance to. But there you go, Frank Zappa, One Size Fits All. Definitely a really nice listen. Okay, so we're still technically in the progressive rock segment of the video, but this is kind of like a sub-segment, if you will, because all the progressive rock we usually talk about is either mostly from the UK, with a couple exceptions from the US. But in the 70s, there was also a big progressive rock movement in Italy. And I heard about this Italian Prague scene, and eventually I thought the time was finally right to actually explore some of this stuff. So I went on one of my favorite music channels, Sea of Tranquility, and I watched this like primer video of him going through some of the most recommended Italian Prague albums out there. And of that video, these are the ones I ended up picking up. And we have quite a bit, honestly. So, first one, and please note, again, I'm not Italian, so I'm probably going to butcher a lot of these names, but I'm going to try. So the first one is from a band called Corpo di Marte, and this is their self-titled album from 1973. Now, the difference from what I've gathered from people, the difference between Italian prog to British and American progressive rock is that it definitely has a very romantic tone to it, but it still harkens to a lot of those UK bands. You'll hear comparisons to Genesis, Gentle Giants, and Yes every once in a while. And still though, despite that, this is definitely one of my favorite ones I've heard. Great musicianship. Again, that's probably going to be the big thing I'm going to be saying through most of these albums, is the musicianship is extremely well. And the vocals, again, they're Italian, so you're not going to always know what they're saying, but I kind of like the vibe of the vocals. There's something, it brings a different flavor, which is definitely something that it's kind of hard to describe. You just have to hear it for yourself. But there's 7 songs on here, and it's kind of funny how all the song titles are listed as, you know, primo tempo or secondo tempo, because I think, based on, again, I did not look this up, but if I were to guess, this translates to first song, second song, third song, so on and so forth. So not really that imaginative in the title department, but still, again, most people will say this is one of the must listen to in this Italian genre, but I definitely can see that. So that's the first one. And these next kind of go hand in hand, these next two I'm going to show. So the first one is from a band called Cherry 5, and this is their self-titled album. And I think this is from 73, 74. I'm kind of blanking. But what's notable about this band is that pretty much most of the members would kind of drop Cherry 5 and decide to go under a new name, and it's another very popular name, and the band's called Goblin, and I have this album called Roller. Now, starting with Cherry 5, I think it's my favorite of the two, because this one had more vocals on it, because Goblin didn't really do vocals. It was mostly instrumental, and also Goblin also did a lot of soundtracks for horror films, which, you know, after getting their album a listen, yeah, I can kind of see it. They have a song literally called Dr. Frankenstein on this. But this one's definitely more of the jazz fusion, proggy sort of vein, and it's very, very good, very enjoyable. I mean, both of these are pretty enjoyable, but again, I think I prefer Cherry 5 just slightly more, but I think they're both kind of worth exploring. Again, they're great musicians, so I definitely think they're kind of worth listening to. And then the next one, we have a band called Celeste. And this is, again, I mean, most people would say it's a self-titled because it's basically a white album, but it does go under a name. And, you know, yeah, screw it. I'm not going to try and say it. I'll just put the actual title up here so you can actually see it. But again, mostly instrumental yet again, but probably the big highlight of the album is definitely the keyboard playing. It is very keyboard heavy, and there's definitely were some great pretty moments, which sounds very nice. It's very slow moving though. That's my other kind of critique of this album. It's a bit too slow for my liking. But again, if you like that sort of chill, more atmospheric, sort of kind of even a little bit of, what's the word, pastoral, I guess, if that's the right word I'm thinking of. It's definitely worth listening to, especially if you like keyboards. But again, I like it, but again, maybe it needs to grow on me a little bit more. And then we have these next two from the same band, and this is a pretty big band from the genre. Like, if you're going to get into Italian progressive rock, this band is definitely going to be brought up, and the band's called Le Orme. And this one's from 1973. We have Filona e Sorona. And then this next one, again, this one I'm going to try and say, we have Contrapunti. And this was the follow-up, I think, from 74. So of these two, I think this one is definitely my favorite. It's kind of like a concept album. I'm going to try and censor this as best I can. But anyway, this is my favorite of the two. It's basically a concept album where you do follow Filona and Sorona, which it's basically these planets, if you will. They kind of orbit each other. One's more positive, while the other one's a bit more negative. And so, based on what I've looked up, by the end of the album, the two planets basically swapped personalities. Again, I don't know the full details of how that happened, but it's still very fascinating when I was looking it up. And again, very cool, very nice. It's a good mixture of the more calm, more atmospheric, but still has a good rocking sound to it. Again, good musicianship here. And I don't know how many members are in this band. I think they might be a trio. I could be wrong on that. But definitely a really good one here. Not to say anything less on Contrapunti, because I think it's also very strong. Again, I think I preferred the ambition of this one just slightly more, though this one I think rocks out a bit more. There's definitely some more faster paced moments on here, but this one was kind of more recent listen to me, so maybe I need to give this one a listen to. But I'm definitely very intrigued by Le Orme. I know I want to check out more from them too. I mean, that's pretty much the big thing. There's a lot of these Italian prog bands that make me want to check out more. And so again, if you are a Italian prog fan, please let me know any other recommendations. But I do have two more to show from this category. And this is another band. Again, this one I'll try to say. This is La Coda d'Elefante. And this is another case where I'm not even going to attempt the title. So there's the title on screen right now. And I will say, this is probably my favorite of the Italian prog albums I've shown. I can't explain why, but I just found the music on here just really spoke to me a lot more. Really good vocals on this. And again, just the overall vibe, like I said, it just really caught my attention. And there's some really, really pretty melodies on here. And also really nice artwork too. Really like the artwork. But yeah, if I were to recommend a progressive rock album from Italy, I would definitely recommend this one. This is really nice. But yeah, pretty good. But I do have one more to show, and this is another one of the big Italian prog bands that most people usually recommend. And this is one, I'll try to say the name. It's a pretty long name. It is Premiate Fornorona Marconi. Or to make it easy for myself, they do go by an anagram. They simplify it to PFM. So that's what I'm going to call them for the rest of this video. So PFM, and this album is, there you go. I know they have a couple big albums, so I went with this one because it was kind of the cheaper one. But this is also pretty nice. This is another strong album. Again, this is one of the last ones I listened to for this month, so again, this one needs to soak in a bit more. But it's only 5 songs, and there's even a few songs that are actually in Italy. And also it's notable that some of the lyrics, especially the English lyrics, were actually done by Peter Sinfield, who of course is known for his stuff with King Crimson early on. So I think that was kind of a neat little trivia. But again, some strong stuff, but again, needs to soak just a little bit more. And that's pretty much all the Italian prog albums I have right now. But like I said a bit ago, if you have any more recommendations, please let me know. Definitely open to any suggestions. And now we have come to the biggest category in this video, and this is essentially the rock/pop segment. This is more your pretty much standard rock and pop music here. So again, it's a long category. I'm going to try and get through this as quick as I can. So the first one, we have another one of these 2-in-1 CDs. We have The Babies, and this has 2 of their albums. We have their debut album, and they have the follow-up with Broken Heart. So I've been meaning to check out more of The Babies because I bought Head First a while ago, and I really enjoyed that one. That was one of my favorite discoveries of that year. And so I saw this and I had to pick it up. And these 2 are pretty good. Definitely, I mean, early on they were definitely more rock, I would say. I think as they progressed, they decided to go for a more pop rock vein. But these are really good. I think Head First is still my favorite, but these 2 are definitely worth checking out if you can get them on CD. Again, the debut is definitely more rocking, more straightforward. But Broken Heart definitely is, you definitely hear the progression. Like, you're hearing a lot more pop elements on this album, but still has that very hard rock edge to them. Again, I think this is probably my favorite of these 2. So again, if I were to recommend, I'd say check out the second one, and then maybe the debut, because again, the debut is also pretty good. But yeah, again, it's good. Definitely want to check out. I don't have too many left of The Babies, actually, now that I think of it, because they didn't release that many. I don't even have any of the ones with Jonathan Cain on them yet, so maybe I want to seek those out next. But there we go, The Babies. I really lucked out when it came to Badfinger in recent time, because I said Badfinger were hard to come by, but I found this one. This is No Dice from 1970. And probably the big song people might know is No Matter What. That's a good rock song, that is. But yeah, like I said, I've been lucking out on Badfinger because, again, for a while I could never find any Badfinger in record stores. But lo and behold, I now have 3. I have the debut album. I have Magic Christian Music, and then I have Straight Up. But yeah, very nice to actually have another Badfinger album. Other songs that I really enjoy were I Can't Take It, I Don't Mind, Midnight Caller, and Without You. That's the other big hit on here. I should have mentioned. Yeah, it has the original Without You. We all know the Harry Nilsson version, but of course this is the original of that song. It had to be Watford John, Believe Me, and the closing song, We're for the Dark. Another strong album from this band. Yep. Again, tragic story, but some good music. And here is another latter period Bee Gees album. This is from 1997. We have Still Waters. So yeah, again, still gradually building the Bee Gees collection. And this here again is a later album, and I really got it because there's one song in here I do in fact love, and it's a song I actually did know because it was part of a greatest hits I have, and that song is Alone. That's a great song from them, especially this later in the game for them. The rest of the album is also pretty decent. Again, these latter period Bee Gees albums, they do lean more in that sort of New Jack Swing, R&B sort of sound, which I'm not too crazy about. But again, there's still some nice songs on this album besides Alone. I also liked I Surrender, My Lover's Prayer, Resistible Force, I Will, and Miracles Happen. So again, nice album. Just wouldn't say this is a, one of my favorites from them, but still has some nice songs. And I picked up another David Bowie album. This is from 1987 with Never Let Me Down, often seen as one of David's kind of weaker albums because, he's going for this very pop sound. And I will say it's definitely not one of my favorites. Again, besides Let's Dance, Bowie in the 80s is kind of not really my thing. But songs I liked on the album were Time Will Crawl, Never Let Me Down, and then the other song I liked was Bang Bang. But the rest of the album is kind of forgettable. And Peter Frampton on guitar, which is kind of a nice little note. But yeah, didn't really care much for this album. And this particular copy of the CD, this album's notorious because there is one song that was taken off because Bowie didn't like it. This one doesn't have that song, which I don't know if I should be upset, but I don't know if that song would have helped the album in the grand scheme of things. So I think I'm okay with the copy I have at the moment. If I do find a copy with that song in it, I might consider getting it, but this will suffice for the time being. And here is more Chicago, specifically 80s Chicago. This is Chicago 16. Again, I know there's people that do not care for this period of the band. Again, I have a soft spot for this era, so of course I had to pick it up because there's definitely two songs on here that I really enjoy, and that's Hard to Say I'm Sorry and Love Me Tomorrow. But the other songs I liked were Waiting for You to Decide, Chains, Follow Me, Sunny, Think Twice, Rescue Me, and that's pretty much it. Not the strongest 80s album from the band, but again, there's some good pop songs on here, which I thought were good enough. But still a solid album, I think. And then I picked up two Coldplay albums. This one is called Milo Xyloto. I don't know if I said that right, but I also picked up Ghost Stories. So yeah, kind of getting more Coldplay, and they're kind of slowly going to a more pop sort of aim. Of course, still have that Coldplay edge. Of these two, I think this is definitely the favorite for me. I think it's definitely a little stronger. This one is fine, but I feel like it's very atmosphere driven, which is the point where it got slightly boring to me. I mean, it has a big hit on here. You have A Sky Full of Stars, which is great, but there's a part of me that feels like the whole album was just trying to build to that song. And so once that song came on, I was like, oh my god, yeah, this is what I'm waiting for, man. But again, the rest of the album is fine, but yeah, this is definitely better to me. This could grow on me potentially, but for now, yeah, this is the better one. Still not quite as strong as some of the early stuff I've heard from the band, but still pretty nice. And here is Crosby, Stills and Nash with their album aptly titled S&N. So yeah, this is from 1977, and it's pretty nice, pretty good. Definitely not nearly as strong as the debut album and Deja Vu with Neil Young, but again, a nice album. But songs like Carried Away, Anything at All, Cathedral, Dark Star, Run from Tears, and then Give Blinds. That's a very odd title. But still, very nice album. Not as strong, but still pretty good. And I do prefer the next one, 1982 Daylight Again. I think that's what it's called. I think that's also stronger than this to me. But still, like I said, not bad. And here's a pretty big surprise. We have Miley Cyrus, and this album is called Plastic Hearts. Now, I didn't know I was going to get more Miley Cyrus, but this was actually one I was actually wanting to get for some time, because I actually didn't hear one song prior, and that song is called Night Crawling, because that song features Billy Idol. And I have always liked that song, so I really wanted to check out the rest of the album. And again, I was pleasantly surprised. This is a very good album. It's kind of like a pop rock, a little bit of a punk, trying to see what, there's a little bit of a synth pop there sound as well. It's just a really nice album. Definitely the strongest Miley Cyrus album I've heard to date. And I don't think, because I have I have another album from her. I think it's a bit later, and it doesn't really. I don't know if she goes back to this sound ever again. I kind of wish she stuck with this kind of pop rock vein. But you have a couple other guest stars. You have Dua Lipa, and then you have Joan Jett on here as well. But the rest of the album, again, very good. I really dug this one. Definitely a highlight from this year so far in terms of the CDs I picked up. Will it be number one? Don't know. We'll wait and see till the end of the year. Now here's one of those blind buys that I got because I knew the artist, I knew her name, but this is her first solo album I'm checking out. And this person is called Agnetha Foltskog. Of course, if you don't know her by her name, you might know her from the band she was from, and that was ABBA. So this is her solo album. Now, this is not her first solo album. She actually had released albums prior, but they were all in Swedish. But here, this is her first English album. And this was also post the ABBA breakup. So, interesting timeline here. So again, I didn't know what to expect from her. Because again, I'm so used to her in ABBA, I don't know what a studio album by herself would be like. And again, it's another one of those pleasant surprises. Like, I found myself liking this album way more than I initially believed. I'm not going to say this is like a pop masterpiece or anything, but there's some really good catchy songs on here, and of course her vocals are great. Probably the song I would recommend you check out is the title track, Wrap Your Arms Around Me. I love the chord progression of that one, especially as it transitions into the chorus. That's one of my favorite moments. But yeah, if you want to check out her solo stuff, start with this. I think it's worth checking out. But yeah, nice surprise. And now we have Fanny yet again. This is their final studio album. This is called Rock and Roll Survivors. I putting air quotes on final because again, they would later on release a kind of reunion album of sorts. We'll see if we get that next at some point. But in terms of the initial run, this is the last album. And there was a change in the band. 2 members were out. So you had June Millington on guitar left. And then Alice DeBure, the drummer, also left. So you're really just down to just Nikki Barclay and Gene Millington. And they brought in a couple other people on board. I think one of the members was an early member of the band, but she quit early on, but she came back. Those 2 members were Bree Howard. I think she was the one, or one of the 2. And then Patty Quattro on guitars. So I didn't know what to expect, because again, it's not the classic lineup anymore. But I dig this album. I don't know if this is definitely not my favorite, but it's definitely more pop than rock, I would say. That's probably going to be a turn-off point for some, because yeah, it's not really that rocking, not really. Like I said, definitely leans more on the pop side of things, which I don't mind. I don't mind that. I definitely do think it's a nice album. Is it worth checking out? Well, if you're kind of iffy on this lineup, then you just come in with an open mind. That's all I'll say. But it's not a long album. There's only 10 songs on this, so songs that stood out to me were the title track, Butter Boy, Long Distance Lover, Rockin' All Night Long, Get Out of the Jungle, Sally Go Round the Roses, and the last song, From Where I Stand. So, solid album. Again, not quite as strong as some of the last albums, but I do prefer this over the last one, I will say. Mother's Pride, again, not really their strongest album. Earlier, I talked about Billy Idol, and here he is. We have his debut album. And this has 2 big songs on here. Well, technically one, but I say 2 because there's a bonus song on here. So the big song is White Wedding, Part 1. And then the other song that's pretty big on here, although it's just a bonus song, you have Dancing with Myself. So Billy Idol, for a long time, I only have Rebel Yell. That's pretty much the only Billy Idol album I've had. But it's nice to actually have the debut. Again, it has White Wedding. And the rest of the album is pretty fun. Again, it's probably not going to be for everybody if you're not into Billy Idol, especially his more poppy sort of punk sort of thing. But I dig it, Billy Idol. Again, a lot of fun. That's pretty much the word I will say for this. It's a fun album. Again, not going to be for everybody, but I kind of dug it. Billy got that, I don't know, that snarl, I guess, if you will. But fitting, very fitting. So, yeah, just wanted to get it, but there you go, Billy Idol. And here we have Kiss, and we have a latter Kiss album, well, slightly latter, in terms of the 80s at least. This is from 1989. This is called Hot in the Shade, often seen as one of the band's weakest albums, one of their worst albums, from what I've gathered. And I'm going to be a little defensive. I actually don't hate this album, although I kind of can understand why people would. It's not their best sounding album, that's one. It's kind of, I don't know, probably could have been cleaner, a little bit cleaner, given its Kiss. And there's 15 songs on here, so it definitely goes on the more longer side. But again, there are some songs I thought were decent. You know, Raise It Up, Betrayal, Betrayed, Hide Your Heart, and this did have a hit on here. We have the Power Ballad Forever, which I actually do like. I'm a sucker for ballads. Silver Spoon, King of Hearts, Little Caesar, and Boomerang. So, not the best Kiss album I've heard, because again, it's pretty, there's a lot on here, and some of it doesn't work. But there were some songs I did like, so it wasn't a total train wreck for me. But still, I wouldn't say this is like a go-to. This is not an album I recommend you check out first. And here we have an artist that was suggested from a viewer. I should have looked up who actually said it. So if I remember, I'll show the comment here that kind of recommended this artist to me. And if you do have an artist you want me to check out, I'll consider it. And if it's cheap, if I can get it for a good price, then yeah, I'll pick it up. So anyway, the artist is called Laura Marling. And this is her album called Alas, I Cannot Swim. So this is essentially a folk rock album, if you will, because it's very folky. And I like it. It was pretty solid. I don't love it, but it's still pretty nice. It's pretty good. But again, in terms of the style, it's probably something I would only go after if I'm in the right mood for. But she has a nice voice. Again, there's some good melodies on this. So if you're a kind of a more modern folk rock band fan, because this was in 2008, I would say, yeah, give it a listen. You might enjoy this a little bit more than I did. But to that viewer who recommended this one, still, thank you very much for the recommendation. Alright, this is one of those blind buys. This is from an artist called Aldo Nova. And this is a Canadian artist. So I know I have one viewer, Mike, if you're watching this. I know you're Canadian, so let me know, how big is Aldo Nova? Is he still pretty big to this day? Because this hype sticker says it's a groundbreaking debut. And, you know, this was kind of a minor hit here in America, I think, based on what I looked up. And yeah, it's a pretty decent album. I liked it. But again, it's like I don't know how groundbreaking it is. Again, there's probably something I'm completely missing. But there's some good guitar playing, and his voice is pretty solid all the way through. And there's some nice, memorable tracks for the most part. There wasn't really a song I flat out didn't like. But only 10 songs, and it was just a nice, pretty smooth listen. I don't know if I'll explore more of him, but who knows? We'll see how it goes. But yeah, just want to showcase this one. Here is Ram Jam, and this is their self-titled album from 1977, I believe. Of course, the song that most people remember Ram Jam for is their cover of Black Betty, which is a classic rock song. And yeah, I've been meaning to get this album, although I will say I have no idea why this CD copy or this certain issue of the album, they decided to change the name of the album. Like, now it's called Golden Classics. I have no idea why that is, because bullshit, it's called Ram Jam and I know it. But anyways, so 11 songs on this album. And yeah, besides Black Betty, which again, we all know that's a classic, the rest of the album is pretty good. Like, maybe not as big as Black Betty, but still the rest of the album is still very strong. Again, some great guitar work. I mean, there's 2 vocalists on here actually, and both are pretty good. It's just a very solid mid-late 70s rock. That's pretty much what it is. Again, 11 songs, and pretty much most of the songs here were pretty good. So if you want to check out more Ram Jam, besides the hit, yeah, seek out this debut. You might be surprised. And we have yet another one of these 2-in-1 packs, and this is REO Speedwagon. And this one has their debut album from 71 and their second album from 72. So yeah, checking out more early REO. And this CD is, this time they do have it in separate discs, which I do tend to prefer. I'm not really a big fan of 2-in-1 CDs where it's just one disc. I do prefer if they're on separate discs, but that's just me. But yeah, early REO. So the debut, this is with their first lead singer, Terry, I forgot, I know his name's Terry something. Yeah, I'm blanking on his name. Terry Luttrell, who would go on to be in a prog band called Starcastle. Little fun fact for you. Yeah, of the 2, I think the debut is my favorite. I like their early rock sound of them, especially Gary Richrath's guitar, very upfront, which I like a lot. So I think the debut is definitely my favorite. But the second album's pretty good too. This is the first album with Kevin Cronin, who of course is what people associate REO with. He's kind of is the voice of the band. And then, funny enough, he would be fired after this album, but then he would come back a few years later. Interesting timeline, REO. But the second album's pretty good too. Although, again, it's their first album with Kevin, and Kevin has a different style at this point. He's definitely more of the singer-songwriter. And then I don't think the hard rock and the singer-songwriter aspects blended that well yet. But still, there's some good songs on there too. So yeah, pretty good. So I think this is a nice way to get into early REO if you want to get the first 2 albums in an easy way. Yeah, maybe get the CD. I think it's worth seeking out. So if you remember, I talked about Eddie Jobson from the UK, and he was in Roxy Music. Well, here he is. We have Roxy Music with Eddie Jobson on here too. And this is their 5th studio album. This is called Siren. Interesting album cover. I think of the Roxy Music album I've heard so far, I don't know, I like it, but it's probably my least favorite I've heard so far, because I only have 3. I have Country Life and I have Stranded. I don't know, as time has gone on, I find myself, I'm kind of more of a casual Roxy Music fan. There's just something about them that's not fully clicking with me. The vocals are okay. Musically it's pretty good, but besides that, I'm not really getting the hype with Roxy Music right now. Again, I'm going to keep trying. I'll keep trying. And again, this is not a bad album. Love Is the Drug. That's a really good song. But besides that, not fully hooked yet. Good moments, still not my thing. Again, that's just me though. Here is Cat Stevens. We have T for the Tiller Man. Now there is one song I am very familiar with, and that is of course Father and Son, which was on the Guardian of the Galaxy soundtrack. And that's a great, very emotional driven song. And the rest of the album is pretty nice too. Again, it's a pretty good singer-songwriter album with some nice songwriting, and the vocals from Cat Stevens is pretty nice too. Pretty good. I like this one. We'll see if I ever pick up any more Cat Stevens. But any recommendations? Again, feel free to let me know. And we have Styx. We have Cyclorama. This is the first album without Dennis DeYoung on vocals. We have Lawrence Gowan now in the fold. And yeah, it's a pretty good one. Again, I think it's definitely the weakest of the Lawrence Gowan albums I've heard so far. But still, there are some nice songs on here too, but there's definitely some questionable parts of it that kind of threw me off. Mainly because there's a Tenacious D cameo on this, which I thought is kind of, why? But it's kind of, but you know, that's just one of those eyebrow raising moments, like, why? But still, it's a solid album. Again, pretty good. Still not fully hooked on this one, but I do think the other later albums I've checked out from the band, those are definitely a lot stronger than this. But again, good songs like Do Things My Way, Waiting for Our Time, These Are the Times, Yes I Can, Together, Captain America, Killing the Thing That You Love, and One with Everything. So yeah, there you go. Just want to showcase some more Styx. I'm almost done getting the whole catalog. Here we have a duo, a twin duo basically. We have Tegan and Sarah, and this is an album called Love You to Death. So I bought an album from this duo a little bit ago, and I really dug dug the sound of that one. But here they kind of went for a more pop sound, mainly because this is a bit after they did the Lego movie, and so they decided to keep this kind of pop sound in, kind of more synth pop, if you will. And this is another one of those albums where I really dug this album. This is a great pop album. Again, not too long. And I didn't knew one song before going into this, because I don't know how, but I knew the song BWU, which is just an anagram for Be With You. It's a very nice pop album. I really enjoy this one. This is another one of the highlights of this haul. So I would recommend, if you like pop, it's a bit more of a modern pop music, but I think it's very tasteful. Very good songwriting, very good vocals. Definitely one I would recommend. And now we have 4 from this particular band, and this is a band I do talk about quite a bit, and that band is Uriah Heep. And this is basically me kind of finishing off the 70s catalog at least. So I have Wonderworld. This came out in 1974. And then after that, we have 1976's High and Mighty. And then I have a little bit of the 80s stuff too. We have Equator, and this came out in 1985. And then the last one I did pick up is called Raging Silence, and this is from 1989, if I'm not mistaken. So a little bit later in the decade. So we'll talk about these two first, because like I said, I got these because these are the only 2 of the David Byron era I did not have. And very glad to actually own these, because now I have that whole run. And this is a very strong album, very good. You can definitely do hear a little bit of them starting to lose it a little bit, because you have songs like So Tired, which, you know, kind of revealing. But again, there's still some really good playing on this thing, and you still got the classic lineup. So still very much very good. And I think it's the last album with the classic lineup, because I think Gary Thane would pass away not too long after this. But still, definitely worth checking out. And then we have High and Mighty, the very last with David Byron before he would be essentially fired because of his drinking habit. And this also, you have John Wetton on bass. This is his second album he was in. Funny enough, I talk about John Wetton again too. And he started on with the Return of the Fantasy album, and then, like I said, this is the last one with this particular lineup. And funny enough, you can tell the band was really starting to lose themselves, because the first song, One Way or Another, doesn't even have David Byron singing. You have John Wetton actually taking lead vocals with Ken Hensley, which is kind of funny, but it's still a good song actually. So both of these I do like. This one definitely more. This one's a little bit weaker, but there's still some good songs on here. But yeah, very nice to have all the 70s Uriah Heep albums now. And now I'm going to see if I can focus on getting all the latter part Uriah Heep albums, just like these two. Equator, 85. This is them trying to go commercial, but it really did not work. It's really sold poorly, and it's kind of turned the band off from recording for a few years. And I kind of get it. Yeah, I wasn't fully into this one. Something funny enough, the songs just weren't that memorable. Even though they're trying to go for a more commercial sound, felt like the songwriting fell flat, which is kind of a shame. But they did make up for it with this one, with Raging Silence. And the notable one of this album is that it's the first with their current lead singer, Bernie Shaw. And this is a pretty strong album. I really dug this one, surprisingly. Although this CD copy is kind of weird, because I think, based on research, the first song is supposed to be Hold Your Head Up. But for the CD copy, they start with Blood Red Roses. I have no idea why they changed the track listing for that, but it's very minor, so I'll let it go. But still, pretty good. Again, I need to check out more of this era of the band. I think I only have one other album with Bernie Shaw, but you know, I definitely want to keep exploring that. I'm probably missing out, I know for a fact. But there you go, that's all the Uriah Heep I have, and I'm sure there'll be more to collect in the future. And then we have this one. We have the Village People with Cruisin', and literally the only reason I got this is because it has YMCA on it. That's literally it. I checked out the rest of the album, and yeah, nothing tops YMCA, but it's kind of a novel thing in the collection, I guess. So yeah, not much else to add, but if you like YMCA, why not get it? Sure. And we have a compilation album. This is the 20th Century Masters, which I've been critical of in the past, but this is actually a decent one. We have the Waitresses. And because it's the Waitresses, I feel like they warrant this sort of compilation, because there's only 12 songs, and it's pretty much all the songs you ever want from the Waitresses. Of course, you have their bigger hits with I Know What Boys Like, and then you have the Christmas song, Christmas Wrapping, which is a great Christmas song. And the rest of the album is it's fine. It's fine. But yeah, it's just really those two songs for me. The rest is kind of take or leave. But, you know, it's pretty much all the Waitresses I'll ever want, I guess. And we have White Stripes with Elephant, a very big album for them. Of course, it has the big hits, Seven Nation Army, which most of us already know. And I'm not gonna go too in depth because this was actually a Patreon request. This was from Scott from SoundLab Studios. I did a whole reaction to this album, so if you want to check out my full thoughts on this particular album, head over to Patreon, become a member, and you'll have access to that reaction. But still, I bought it, so I'll let you fill in the blank. And these next two, we have Neil Young. I found his debut album, and then after that I have Tonight's the Night, and this is from 75, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, Neil Young. So starting with his debut album, I was debating whether to put this with the country set in the country segments, because it has a very country aesthetic to it. But this album is a little bit more folky and rocky. And so I didn't want to separate them, so I thought, I'll put this with the rock section, because it's kind of country rock, I guess. Rock. Then again, Graham Parsons was also country rock. But anyway, not gonna get into the specifics. Decent album. I liked it. Maybe too country for me, but there's some moments on here, and I do think there are seeds on where Neil Young is gonna go, but still haven't quite find his own unique voice. Well, he does have a unique voice, but in terms of the songwriting, I think by the next album, which I still need to get, I think that's where he starts to find his unique sound, especially when he partners up with Crazy Horse. Speaking of Crazy Horse, they are a little featured a bit on this album, and this is a pretty strong album, pretty good. Let me just give you all the notes. Let me see what songs were the big highlights for me. Just give me a second here. Here it is. Yeah, only 12 songs. Tonight's the Night, both part 1 and part 2. Speaking Out, World on a String, Come On Baby, Let's Go Downtown, Mellow My Mind, Roll Around Number, Albuquerque, New Mama. Like, those songs were pretty good. Those were the songs that stood out to me the most. And I know this was part of Neil Young's, I guess, Dirt they called it like a Dirt trilogy, I think. Don't know why it's called that, but still, I like it. Pretty good. Strong album for them. And the last CD I'm going to be showcasing in this video is another soundtrack, and that is the soundtrack to La La Land. And even though it is a jazzy album, so this could have gone with the jazz rock segment with the progressive rock, but I thought it would be funny, the first CD I showed was a soundtrack, so might as well finish with a soundtrack. Poetic, I know. But yeah, this is actually one I was supposed to buy a while ago, because this was pretty much part of an album exchange. This was Jacob Martin's suggestion, but he kind of quit before we actually got around to doing it. And so because he quit, I didn't feel the need to get it anymore. But this is kind of me making up for it. So I decided to get it, just so I now have all the album exchange albums. And I'll talk a bit about this one. I have seen the movie. I do enjoy the movie. I saw it in high school for a film studies class, I guess, because we were talking about musicals. And I did enjoy the movie. I do like the soundtrack quite a bit. But I will say, this might be a hot take, I'm not crazy about Ryan Gosling singing. I definitely do think, what's her name? Emma Stone, definitely a stronger singer. And I even like the song from John Legend, Start a Fire. I really like that one. But there's instrumental tracks, the typical soundtrack tropes. There's many versions of City of Stars on this. So there's some nice songs on here. Probably my favorite song on here is the first one with Another Day of Song, which also starts, that's how the movie starts, with that song. But there you go. Just another soundtrack for the collection, if you will. But there you go. That is all the CDs I have picked up for the month of February. Again, short month, but yet I was able to get a lot, and I was able to listen to them all. I'm very proud of myself. So that's going to do it for this CD haul. If you enjoyed this, please give this video a like. Subscribe to the channel if you are new, and of course, comment below your thoughts on any of the albums that were shown. I always look forward to your comments. And if you want to support the channel and be the first to know what CDs will enter the collection, then become a member on my Patreon page. And until then, I will see you in the next video. Take care, and goodbye for now.